Hey guys, today I want to show you one more example for now of a linear melodic phrase and how we may go about practicing it primarily from a technical perspective so that we could attempt to efficiently work the idea into our body or hands. I actually really like this idea for a video a lot and will likely do more of them in the future once I'm done with a lot of the other videos that I still feel like I need to make. But either way, let me know in the comments if you guys like this thing or not. This way, I have an idea of what you guys want to see. We're gonna get right to it, but real quick, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Derek Clavin, and this is basically like a free online jazz guitar course that unfolds in a logical sort of manner. So if you really want to benefit the most, I'd recommend trying your best to go through these videos in order. I know a lot of them are long, but really try to watch at least the first 3 or 4 episodes to see what the channel's all about, and then you can take it from there. And I'm also available for private lessons and have a lot of available accompanying PDFs to go along with a lot of the videos on this channel, like this one here today, and information for all that stuff can be found on my website as well as my Patreon. Now, the main components of what I'm about to get into here, I've already explained to death in most of the other recent videos, so I'm not going to do that again here today. And if you're confused by anything that I may be saying or demonstrating in this video, make sure to check those videos out so you can really understand what's going on here. But for now, I'll just remind you that the basic idea really is that we're taking a phrase that we may like and trying to work out the different possible fingerings for that phrase that may exist that would be coming out of the different fingerings or positions of the cage system, the major scales, essentially using them like a blueprint to help us find what may be possible. And then for all the viable fingerings that may exist for a given idea, we're basically moving it up and down the fretboard, usually in either half steps or whole steps. I will let you know now though, and you may be pleased to hear this, that because I have already talked a lot in the other recent videos about what the main topic of this video or focus really is, which is technique related, and because of the nature of this specific example today, I'll actually be saying more things, or probably more so related to harmony and possible applications. So a lot of the stuff today is kind of like bonus information and kind of shows what may be possible in terms of just by choosing to study any given unique idea, you'll inevitably learn various different things about music. So the example today, as you likely already know, is coming from the uncomparable Charlie Parker, and this is from his solo off of his recording of the tune Bigfoot, which ironically, or maybe not necessarily ironically, but this is actually something that I put a clip of me playing in one of the older videos on his channel, episode 4, and I still work on this whole solo to this day, just to give you an idea of, how I'm still practicing bits of material for a long time and reaping the benefits, alright? But this is just from one of the choruses, and basically in one of the positions, and I'll give you this fingering right now for free, it's basically like this. Alright, do that one more time. Coming in on the downbeat of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the reason why I chose this example today is because, unlike all the other recent examples, the basic harmonic analysis for this phrase really does pretty much unavoidably work out to implying a 2-5 kind of a chord progression with a definitive harmonic motion being displayed within the melody or the phrase. In other words, for all the other examples for the most part that I've shown relating to this topic so far, they're all things that we can say that although we still may be able to apply them to harmonic situations like a 2-5 progression, their basic harmonic analysis still works out fundamentally to really just implying one basic tonality at a time, where with this phrase as a complete individual unit still really does define some sort of distinctive harmonic change that is happening. So to show you what I mean, if we start by, breaking this phrase down and relating it to the original context that it was in, this phrase falls entirely within measure 4 of a blues within the key of B flat. So we should know that we're still on the 1-7 chord in this measure, and we're going to be leading into the 4-7 chord in measure 5, all right? So one good thing to be aware of whenever you're playing a blues is how you may treat this 1-7 chord in measures 1 through 3 can be a little different from how you may choose to look at it in measure 4. So in measures 1 through 3, assuming you're not going to the 4 chord in measure 2, you can really see this 1-7 chord more as a 1 chord or a point of resolution, unlike how a dominant is typically being used. Whereas in measure 4, you may choose to see it more as a real dominant chord, acting kind of like a secondary dominant chord leading to the E flat, seeing that as a tonic in the next measure, all right? So you're seeing it more as a point of tension versus a point of stability. So how you may play over it may be a little different if you choose to do it like that, all right? Now, regardless of how you may choose to perceive this dominant, either way, a good thing that you could do sometimes, or a way of harmonically looking at it, is to do something that we call 2ing the 5, where if we're treating it like a 5 chord, even if it really is the 1 chord in the key that we're playing in, you can think of the 2 chord that diatonically relates. So if we're thinking B flat 7, that would be really like in the key of E flat, which is where we're going to anyway. The 2 chord would be F minor or F minor 7, right? So you can also kind of see your B flat 7 chord as a F minor, and that may, expand your ideas of what you can think of doing. So even if you're on the first 3 measures, seeing it more as like a mixolydian, a not so dissonant type of dominant chord, I could think of, F minor and get stuff like, just from thinking of F minor over B flat 7, right? But that's just a side point. But the phrase that Charlie Parker plays in measure 4 here really does kind of imply this situation where you're starting on more of a 2 chord and then going into a more dissonant type of 5 and then leading to a 1. So this is the phrase that he plays, right? So let's just assume that we're looking at the first half as if it's going over F minor, even though it's all diatonic anyway, all right? So he plays this, going into that. That's a straight up C minor triad. So I've talked about this before. If you have like a minor chord, especially a 2 chord, if you play a minor chord or a minor triad that is down a perfect fourth from the root of the original chord, so down a fourth from F, you have C, right? So C minor triad. Now it leads into this, which is like the minor 7. You can think of it like C minor 7, but now we're in the next part of the phrase over B flat 7, and he's literally just playing a B flat augmented triad, right? So this phrase harmonically breaks down to basically C minor triad to B flat augmented, but it's kind of used over a F minor 7 to B flat 7 type of a sound. And even though we're not going to E flat major, even if we were, like if we had a real 2-5-1 in the key of E flat major, perfect 2-5 line, so you should be able to hear that. I just forgot to mention this point, and I'll try to be quick since I've basically said the same thing in some of the other recent videos, but it's still a good reminder, and that is that, even though we can take an example like this and break it down to basically understanding it conceptually as like a pair of triads, one triad and then another that's relating to a chord progression, and even though we could certainly take that and extrapolate it essentially as a harmonic device that we could apply to improvisation, and with an example like this, that actually may work really well because we're dealing with something so fundamental and strong like triads. But regardless of all that, it's still important to remember to really be appreciative of the uniqueness of the phrase itself, just as a melody, all right, in terms of really understanding what makes it musically stand out and sound good. And I don't like to interpret this sort of thing as being like black or white or one or the other, but it's just that for me, oftentimes, if I'm truly improvising in the moment, if I'm going to start to think about things like harmony, like using certain triads or arpeggios or whatever over whatever situation, that can often be too slow of a mental process to be able to think about in the moment when you're really playing, and you're really more so trying to think in a genuinely musical way. So if anything, for me at least, seeing this stuff as like a harmonic device may be more helpful when you're doing like actual composing and trying to work out and finalize ideas that you may like, that sound good to you, that may utilize whatever harmonic device you're working on. All right, so just good to always remember that as well. So going back to what I was saying before, the thing that really makes this phrase that we're currently viewing as a 2-5 phrase different is that there's a true harmonic change being implied. And again, if we're seeing this as kind of going over F minor 7 half a measure to B flat 7 for half a measure, the change is occurring when we get to the B flat 7 and we play this B flat augmented triad. And it's basically because the theoretical analysis would relate that to coming from a different parent scale than like a major scale, because that augmented sound, like just the augmented triad, like B flat augmented over a B flat 7 chord, it's a totally valid and great sound to use, but you can't really say that it's definitively coming from a major scale sort of tonality anymore. So that change really just from that one note, can be coming from different scales, but one thing you could say it's coming from would be like a B flat altered scale, right? So B flat 7 altered is like B natural or C flat melodic minor. So that would be like a different key essentially, right? So that's why it sounds like there's a change happening. This is not the case for all lines that you may see as like a 2-5 line. A very clear diatonic example would be if I had something like this. That's all diatonic to the key of E flat major, even if you may say that it's going over F minor to B flat 7. Another one would be the last example that I showed 2 videos ago. If I do it in the same key as what we're dealing with here, the phrase was like, it was the one with the fourth, the one that goes. You could say that it sounds like a 2-5 line or that there's a change happening, but that's still all coming from one scale, alright? So that's the whole point of what I'm rambling about here. So this type of stuff is important to be aware of because, like I've been saying a lot lately, everything depends on context when you're doing this sort of work, and even how you may possibly be able to apply any given idea, which we will really talk about that in future videos. But the fact that this line, if we even just started with it as a melody, totally independent of any harmonic context or form now, the fact that it has such a strong harmonic change being implied in it already, that really kind of implies a 2-5 motion, basically tells me, even before I do this sort of work, that its potential application and use may be more limited, and that's okay. But the only way you'll be able to figure out what you can do with this stuff is by putting in the work and exploring. Alright, so I'm probably going to allude to more of that as I continue here, but basically, once you understand this sort of original context of this line, now the thing to do is what I've been doing in all the episodes, basically working it through the fingerings and moving it up and down. So this first one, I'm not going to do this for all of them today, maybe just to save time. You could check it out in all the other videos, but if this was the original key or position, I can move that up and down. Now maybe I'll bring it up here. Whole steps. And so on. So you can do that for all these fingerings I'm going to go through now, and chromatically as well, and all that stuff, the fingerings and everything, that'll be in the PDF that I'm including in this video. If anyone wants to check it out, it could be very helpful for you. This way you don't have to kind of work it out yourself if this is new and confusing to you. Alright, so this position that I started with is actually the G position for the key of E flat major, if we're talking about the cage system of fingerings, right? So that's basically the same thing as like a C Aeolian. And I'm really kind of using this and seeing this the way I described before, as if I'm thinking of a 2 chord with the root on the A string, at least the way I'm using it there. That's where I'm kind of seeing it very clearly, like a 2-5 line, right? And if you saw the other video I mentioned like 2 videos ago, I happened to say that I usually start with the D position, and look what happened here. I started with the G position today, alright? So we'll just keep this diatonic or within the same key. So the next position of E flat major would be the A position, which is basically like a B flat mixolydian, right? And I can play that over here, basically, right? Now, if we talked a little bit about the application there, like if I saw this is going over B flat 7, this is basically what we had already, because the original context, I'm explaining it like it's F minor to B flat 7, but the F minor is implied. And this kind of teaches us that sometimes if we want to create a more dissonant type of 2-5 sound with more motion, instead of thinking of it like 2 to 5, we can think of it like 5 unaltered, basically moving to 5 altered, because that's the sound, and that's why there's a true change happening, right? So you may not want to use this like at the beginning of the blues or something, because it may cause too much unnecessary change or something like that. So that's what I'm talking about when it depends on context, but I'm sure there's a way to make it sound good as well. Alright, so I'm going to move to the next position now, which would be the C position, which you can see is like in the key of E flat major, either A flat Lydian or G Phrygian, sorry. But I like to see it as the Lydian. And for this position, we get this idea in 2 different octaves. I could play it over here. What was it again? Kind of shifting over there, but it's okay. Doable. Or I can do it in this lower octave. And that's cool, because this is showing me, hey, if I have like a major 7 sharp 11 sound, and it's like kind of coming down this augmented, it's kind of a way to play around with the Lydian sound now, where you can kind of do like a 1-5-1 thing, or like a tension release type of thing, but kind of staying within that Lydian sound, right? So that's pretty cool. If I move to the next one, that would be like F Dorian, or basically the D position of the key of E flat major, and I'm going to move it up the octave. Now, you can do this in 2 octaves here, but one of them is kind of a stretch. If I do, right, I'm kind of shifting, but it's a sort of easy or common move that you kind of do on the guitar to get up there. You come down augmented. It kind of reminds me of a Coltrane type of a phrase. Something like that, right? But I can also do it in the lower octave here, right over here. Right? It kind of mirrors the first position. Alright, giving you that Dorian type of sound. And then the last one would be the E position, which would be like D Locrian, and you can do it over here. Right? And this is one that I would be careful with. Like if I was thinking of it like within the context of a minor 2-5-1, I don't know, you know. You know, it's kind of weird. You got to be careful with it, right? That's why you may want to really take your time and compose. But anyway, this isn't really a video that's actually about application anyway, but I'm just giving you a taste. But just make sure that if you're going to do this sort of work, again, one of the most important things is to take these fingerings and move them up and down so that you kind of know them, you know, independent of any position. Alright, so I'm going to leave that there today, and this is going to be, for now, the last video on this topic, generally speaking, of working linear melodic phrases into the hands. Like I said earlier, I'll probably come back to this topic later. And going forward, I'm going to start to talk more so about chordal things for a little while, so that's going to come, but in the next episode. Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey. I first want to make this other video that I just felt really compelled to make. I actually wanted to put it out before this video here today, but I figured it'd be better to still just do this one first. But I think the next video is going to actually be a really important one, and hopefully a fun one as well, alright? So, should be excited for that. But anyway, that's it for now. So if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a like and consider becoming a subscriber, as well as a contributor to Patreon, where you'll get all the PDFs on this channel for only $5 a month. And if you think anyone else would enjoy the content, please share it with them as well. And I will see you guys in episode 71.
Swinging and playing the blues. That's what we about. I try to help you.